For years, I stayed quiet. I watched the lies grow, watched good people disappear under them. And then one day, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I spoke. I told the truth they feared the most. My words didn't set anyone free. They chained me instead. They called it treason. I call it finally having a voice.
For years I stayed quiet. I watched the lies grow and watched good people disappear under them. And then one day, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I spoke. I told the truth they feared the most. My words didn't set anyone free. They chained me instead. They called it treason. I call it finally having a voice. My name is Daniel Mercer, and I used to believe in systems. I believed that if you worked hard, followed the rules, and kept your head down, everything would work out. I believed that the truth always surfaced eventually, like oil on water. I was wrong about all of it. I moved to Riverside, Oregon in 2015. It was one of those picture-perfect small towns you see in movies. Tree-lined streets, a main street with family-owned shops, Friday night football games that the whole town attended. Population 38,000. Everyone knew everyone. That's what I loved about it. That's also what nearly destroyed me. I got a job as a compliance officer at City Hall. Nothing glamorous. I reviewed contracts, checked budgets, made sure city departments followed state and federal regulations, paperwork, spreadsheets, the kind of work that makes people's eyes glaze over at dinner parties. But I was good at it. I liked the order of it, the clarity. Numbers don't lie, or so I thought. The first time I noticed something wrong, I dismissed it. It was a small discrepancy, a $12,000 payment to a construction company I'd never heard of. The invoice listed road maintenance, but I couldn't find any corresponding work order. I brought it up to my supervisor, Tom Brennan, a man who'd worked at City Hall for 23 years. "Don't worry about it," he said, barely looking up from his computer. "Probably just misfiled. I'll check with Public Works." I never heard about it again. Then there was another, and another. Small amounts at first. Always different companies, always vague descriptions. Consulting fees, emergency repairs, administrative services, each one just under the threshold that would trigger an automatic audit. I started keeping a list. By month 3, I had 17 irregularities. By month 6, I had 42. The amounts were growing. So was my unease. But here's the thing about discovering something rotten. You don't want to believe it. Not really. Because believing it means you have to do something about it. And doing something about it means risking everything. So I stayed quiet. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself there were explanations I didn't understand. I told myself it wasn't my place to rock the boat. I had a good job, a nice apartment, a girlfriend named Sarah who taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary. We talked about getting married, about buying a house with a backyard. I had a life I didn't want to lose. But the numbers kept adding up. And then one day, I saw a name I recognized. It was attached to a payment of $47,000 for environmental impact assessment. The company was called Cascade Consulting Group. I'd never seen it in our vendor database before, so I did what any good compliance officer would do. I looked it up. The business was registered to a man named Richard Caldwell Jr., the mayor's son. My hands went cold. I checked the date of the payment. I cross-referenced it with public records. The environmental impact assessment was supposedly for a proposed shopping center development on the east side of town, but there was no development. The project had been rejected by the Planning Commission 8 months earlier. $47,000 for a service that was never needed, for a project that never happened, paid to the mayor's son. That's when I knew. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't bureaucratic confusion. This was theft. Systematic, deliberate theft from every taxpayer in Riverside. I sat in my office that night, long after everyone had gone home, staring at my computer screen. The building was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. Outside my window, Main Street was empty, the streetlights casting long shadows. I had a choice to make. I could close the file, go home, kiss Sarah, and pretend I'd never seen anything. Or I could keep digging. I wish I could say I chose courage right then. But the truth is, I chose fear. I closed the laptop and went home. What I didn't know was that someone had already noticed I was looking, and they were watching me. I was barely awake, coffee half made, still in the t-shirt I'd slept in. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The subject line made my stomach drop. regarding your recent inquiries. No sender name. Just an auto-generated email address from City Hall's internal system. Mr. Mercer, it has come to our attention that you have been accessing files outside your departmental authority. Please be reminded that unauthorized review of confidential city business is a violation of your employment contract and may result in immediate termination. This is your only warning. My hands shook as I read it twice, then 3 times. They knew. Sarah emerged from the bedroom yawning, her hair pulled into a messy bun. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I forced a smile, locked my phone. Yeah, just work stuff. Want to talk about it? It's boring compliance things. You'd fall asleep. She kissed my cheek and headed for the shower. I stood there in our sunny kitchen, surrounded by the normal life we'd built, and felt the walls closing in. I should have stopped. Any reasonable person would have stopped. But here's what they didn't understand. Sending that email was the worst thing they could have done, because it confirmed everything. If there was nothing to hide, why threaten me? Why warn me off? They were scared, which meant I was onto something real. I went to work that day with a flash drive hidden in my pocket and a plan forming in my mind. I would be careful. I would be smart. I would copy everything I'd found, every questionable payment, every suspicious invoice, every connection I'd traced, and then I'd take it to someone who could actually do something about it. The morning crawled by. I smiled at colleagues in the hallway. I attended a budget meeting. I ate lunch at my desk. A sandwich from the deli on 4th Street, the one that made their bread fresh every morning. Everything normal. Everything fine. At 2:15 p.m., when most of the office was in the weekly department heads meeting, I went back to my computer. I pulled up the financial database and started downloading files. My heart hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every click of the mouse felt deafening. Every footstep in the hallway outside made me freeze. The files copied slowly. A progress bar crawled across my screen. 34%, 41%, 53%. Daniel! I nearly jumped out of my skin. Tom Brennan stood in my doorway, his expression unreadable. Hey, Tom! My hand moved subtly to minimize the window. What's up? He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. That's when I knew I was in trouble. I'm going to ask you something, he said quietly, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you investigating the mayor? The air left the room. I could lie. I could deny everything, but looking at Tom's face and this man who'd always been kind to me, who'd invited me to his daughter's wedding, who'd taught me half of what I knew about this job, I couldn't do it. I found irregularities, I said carefully. Payments that don't add up. I'm just doing my job, Tom. He closed his eyes and I saw something I didn't expect. Sadness. This town, he started, then stopped. This town is more complicated than you think, Daniel. There are relationships here, histories, things that have worked a certain way for a long time. You mean corruption. I mean survival. His voice hardened. Riverside was dying 10 years ago. Businesses closing. People leaving. Mayor Caldwell brought investment back. He brought jobs. He saved this place. By stealing from it? By doing what needed to be done. Tom moved toward the door, then paused. You're a good person, Daniel, but you're young. You don't understand how the world really works. Drop this. For your own sake. He left, closing the door softly behind him. I sat there for a long moment, then looked back at my screen. The download was complete. 100%. Small towns have long memories and deep secrets. What city do you think this is happening in? Drop your guess in the comments below. Let's see who's paying attention. Sarah breathed softly beside me, one arm draped across my chest, completely at peace. I stared at the ceiling, watching shadows from passing cars slide across the walls, and thought about Tom's words. You don't understand how the world really works. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was naive. Maybe every town operated this way, and I was just too idealistic to accept it. But then I thought about something else. 3 months ago, a woman named Patricia Dominguez came to City Hall. I'd seen her in the waiting area outside the mayor's office, clutching a folder to her chest, her eyes red from crying. She ran a small landscaping business, one of the few Hispanic-owned companies in Riverside. She'd won a contract to maintain the public parks, but after 6 months of work she hadn't been paid. $23,000 she was owed, money she desperately needed. I'd watched her wait for 4 hours that day. The mayor never saw her. 2 weeks later, I heard her business had closed. I thought about Marcus Webb, who owned the hardware store on Main Street for 37 years. The city had promised him they'd repave the street in front of his shop, fix the broken sidewalk that was driving customers away. They'd budgeted for it, approved it. Then nothing happened. The money vanished into reallocation. 6 months later, Marcus closed his doors for good. I thought about the new community center that was supposed to be built on the south side, where most of the working-class families lived. Promised, funded, then quietly cancelled. But somehow, a brand new golf course clubhouse got built on the north side, where the mayor and his friends played every Saturday. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These were people. Real people whose lives were being stolen from, one budget line at a time. Tom said the mayor saved this town. But who was he saving it for? I slipped out of bed carefully so as not to wake Sarah. In the living room, I opened my laptop and looked at the files I'd copied. Hundreds of documents, thousands of transactions, a web of corruption so systematic, so deliberate, it had to have been going on for years. I couldn't do this alone. I needed help. But who could I trust? The police chief reported directly to the mayor. The city attorney was appointed by the city council, which the mayor controlled. The local newspaper, the Riverside Gazette, ran puff pieces about every ribbon-cutting and charity event the mayor attended. Then I remembered David Ortiz. David was an investigative journalist who'd grown up in Riverside, but now worked for the Oregonian in Portland. We'd been friends in high school, played basketball together, lost touch after college, but I'd seen his byline on articles about government corruption in other Oregon towns. If anyone would listen, it would be him. I found him on Facebook, sent a message at 2:33 a.m. David, it's Daniel Mercer from Riverside High. I know this is random, but I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet? I didn't expect a response until morning, but 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Daniel Mercer. Man, it's been years. What's going on? My fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Once I sent this, there was no taking it back. This was the moment, the choice. I typed, I think I found evidence of massive corruption in Riverside city government. Embezzlement, fraud, maybe more. I need someone who knows what to do with it. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, holy shit. Don't send me anything over Facebook. Can you come to Portland tomorrow? Yes. Coffee shop called Stumptown on Division Street. 10 a.m. Come alone. Don't tell anyone where you're going. And, Daniel, if this is real, if this is as big as you're saying, your life is about to get very complicated. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I typed, see you at 10. When I finally went back to bed, Sarah stirred. You okay? She murmured. I kissed her forehead. Yeah, go back to sleep. She did. I didn't. Because I knew that by tomorrow, everything would change. I just didn't know how much I was about to lose. I told Sarah I had a dental appointment. I hated lying to her, but I couldn't risk telling the truth, not yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. The drive up Interstate 5 was a blur. My mind raced through scenarios, through consequences, through all the ways this could go wrong. The flash drive in my pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Stumptown Coffee was in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and reclaimed wood, filled with people typing on laptops and having quiet conversations. I spotted David immediately. He'd aged well, a little grey at the temples, wire-rimmed glasses, the same easy smile I remembered from high school. We shook hands. His grip was firm, searching my face. You look terrible, he said. Thanks. You look great. He laughed, but it faded quickly. Let's grab a table in the back. We ordered coffee. I got something complicated that I didn't taste, and found a corner table away from other customers. David pulled out a notepad, but didn't open it yet. Before we start, he said, I need to know, are you sure about this? Because once we go down this road, there's no stopping. If what you found is real, it'll blow up. Your name will be attached to it. People will come after you. Your job, your reputation, maybe worse. I know. Do you? His eyes were serious. I've reported on corruption for 8 years. I've seen whistleblowers lose everything. Their careers destroyed, their families threatened. Some of them had to leave their towns, start over somewhere else. This isn't a game. I pulled out the flash drive and set it on the table between us. Patricia Dominguez closed her business because the city didn't pay her $23,000 they owed her, I said quietly. While they were stiffing her, they paid the mayor's son $47,000 for a fake consulting job. Marcus Webb lost his hardware store, while city funds meant for Main Street improvements disappeared. A community center for working families got cancelled, while a golf clubhouse got built. I have documentation of over $2.3 million in fraudulent payments over the past 4 years, maybe more if I had access to older records. David's expression shifted. He picked up the flash drive, turned it over in his fingers. $2.3 million. Conservative estimate, and that's just what I could trace with my access level. If someone with subpoena power looked into this. I leaned forward. David, they threatened me. They know I've been looking, which means they're scared, which means it's real. He was quiet for a moment, then opened his laptop. Show me. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. I walked him through the paper trail. Shell companies, inflated contracts, services never rendered, kickbacks disguised as consulting fees. David took notes furiously, asked sharp questions, cross-referenced names and companies on his own databases. Jesus, he muttered, pulling up public records. Cascade Consulting Group, registered to Richard Caldwell Jr., but look at the business address. He turned the screen toward me. It's a UPS store mailbox. The company doesn't exist. It's just a funnel. And look at this one. I clicked through files. Riverside Development Associates. They got $340,000 for urban planning consultation. The company was created 3 weeks before the contract was awarded and dissolved 6 months later. The registered agent is Margaret Caldwell. David finished reading the screen. The mayor's sister. We stared at each other. This is a family operation, he said slowly. They've been systematically looting the city budget and funneling it through fake companies to themselves and their associates. Can you publish this? Not yet. I need to verify everything independently, talk to sources, get official responses. But Daniel, he closed his laptop, looked at me seriously. This is Pulitzer-level stuff. This is career-making and career-ending, for both of us in different ways. What do? You go home. You act normal. You don't access any more files. Don't ask any more questions. Let me investigate this properly. It'll take a few weeks, maybe a month. Can you sit tight that long? I thought about Tom's warning, about the threatening email, about Patricia and Marcus and all the others. Yeah, I said. I can wait. I should have known they wouldn't let me. I was called into a meeting with HR. Teresa Vance, the Human Resources Director, sat across from me with a thin folder and an expression that gave nothing away. Daniel, we need to discuss some concerns about your performance. I blinked. My performance? I've exceeded every metric for my position. My last review was, this isn't about metrics. She opened the folder. We've received reports that you've been distracted at work, missing deadlines, making errors in your reports. That's not true. I haven't missed a single deadline. She slid a paper across the desk. It was one of my recent compliance reports, marked up with red ink. This budget analysis you submitted last week, there are multiple calculation errors. I looked at it, my blood running cold. I'd submitted that report, yes, but those errors, I'd never made those mistakes. The numbers were wrong. Someone had altered it after I'd submitted it. Teresa, I didn't. We're putting you on a performance improvement plan, she continued as if I hadn't spoken. 60 days. You'll meet with your supervisor weekly to review your work. If your performance doesn't improve, we'll have to reevaluate your position here. A PIP, a performance improvement plan. It was HR code for, we're building a case to fire you. This is retaliation, I said, keeping my voice steady, because I've been asking questions about financial irregularities. Teresa's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're referring to. This is strictly about your job performance. Sign here, please. I signed. What choice did I have? That night, I told Sarah, I had to. She deserved to know what was happening. We sat on our apartment balcony, the Riverside River flowing dark and quiet below us. She listened without interrupting as I explained everything. What I'd found, what I'd done, the journalist in Portland, the meeting with HR. When I finished, she was silent for a long time. How much danger are you in? She finally asked. I don't know, professionally, a lot. They're trying to fire me, discredit me before anything comes out. But David's investigating. Once his article publishes, what if it doesn't publish? She turned to face me. What if his editors kill the story? What if they pressure him? What if the mayor's lawyers tie it up? What if you lose your job and nothing changes? Sarah, I'm not saying don't do this. Her eyes were fierce. I'm saying I need to know you've thought this through. Because I'm with you, whatever happens, I'm with you. But I need you to be realistic about what we might be facing. I took her hand. I know it's risky. But if I don't do this, who will? How many more people like Patricia Dominguez lose everything while the mayor and his family get rich? She squeezed my hand. Okay, then we fight. We. That word meant everything. But the pressure was just beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, things escalated. My car was broken into, nothing stolen, but my glove compartment rifled through. My work computer was randomly selected for a security audit. I started noticing the same dark blue sedan parked across from my apartment at odd hours. Friends at work stopped meeting my eyes in the hallway. Invitations to lunch stopped coming. I heard whispers that fell silent when I approached. Then Sarah started having problems too. Her principal called her in, said there had been concerns about her teaching methods. Parents were complaining, he said, though he couldn't specify what about. Maybe she should consider taking a personal leave. Just until things settled down, she came home shaking with anger. They're going after me now because of you. I'm so sorry. I never wanted... Stop! She grabbed my shoulders. Don't you dare apologize. I meant what I said. I'm with you. But we need to be smart. We need to protect ourselves. How? Document everything. Every threat, every retaliation. If they're going to come after us, we make sure there's a record. That night, I started a journal. Dates, times, incidents, everything. 3 days later, David called. We need to meet. Now, something's happened. His voice was shaking. That's when I knew things were about to get much worse. It was raining, that constant Oregon drizzle that makes everything grey and cold. He was pacing beside his car when I pulled up, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing angrily at nothing. When he saw me, he hung up and strode over. They killed the story, he said, without preamble. The world tilted. What? My editors. They killed it. Said we don't have enough to publish, that the legal risks are too high, that we need more verification. He ran a hand through his wet hair. Daniel, I've been doing this for 8 years. I know when a story is solid. This is solid, but someone got to them. The mayor, or his lawyers, or someone higher up. I don't know. He looked sick. My editor said the decision came from the publisher who, I just learned, plays golf with Mayor Caldwell. I leaned against my car, feeling everything crashing down. The flash drive, the weeks of fear, Sarah's career being threatened, all of it for nothing. So that's it? We just give up? No. David's jaw set. I quit. What? This morning. I resigned. I'm not going to work for a paper that spikes stories because of who the subject knows. He pulled out his phone, showed me a website. I'm going freelance. I've got contacts at ProPublica, at the Associated Press. I'll shop this story to someone who will actually publish it. But Daniel, it's going to take time and it's going to get ugly. How much time? I don't know. Weeks. Maybe months. I couldn't wait months. They were dismantling my life piece by piece. Every day I stayed in Riverside, the noose tightened. There has to be another way, I said. Like what? An idea was forming. Dangerous. Probably stupid. But I was out of options. What if we go to the FBI? David stared at me. Federal corruption charges? This is fraud, embezzlement, mail fraud, wire fraud. These shell companies are crossing state lines, right? That makes it federal. The FBI investigates this kind of thing. Do you know how hard it is to get the FBI interested in local corruption? They've got terrorism, organized crime, major fraud cases, a small-town mayor stealing from his budget. 2.3 million, I reminded him, probably more. Systematic fraud over years. A conspiracy involving multiple people. David, this is bigger than just the mayor. Tom knew. HR knows. How many other people are complicit? How deep does this go? He was quiet, thinking. Then, slowly, he nodded. There's a field office in Portland. I've got a contact there. An agent who works white-collar crime. Let me make some calls. We stood in the rain. 2 men who'd stumbled into something much bigger than we'd anticipated, trying to figure out how to survive it. Daniel, David said quietly, once we bring in the FBI, there's no controlling this anymore. It becomes their investigation. They might seize your evidence, tell you to back off, even use you as a witness in ways you're not comfortable with. You'll lose whatever agency you have left. I don't have any agency now. They're taking my life apart. At least this way, something might actually happen. He nodded. Okay, I'll reach out to my contact, but until then, you need to be careful. If they're willing to pressure a major newspaper, they're willing to do worse. He wasn't wrong. 2 days later, I was arrested. I was walking to my car after work when 2 Riverside police officers approached. I recognized one of them, Officer Bryant, who I'd seen at the coffee shop on 4th Street dozens of times. Daniel Mercer? He said, his hand on his belt. Yes, you're under arrest for theft of city property and unauthorized access to confidential records. They handcuffed me right there in the City Hall parking lot, in front of everyone I worked with, and as they put me in the back of the patrol car, I saw Mayor Caldwell watching from his office window. He was smiling. I sat on a metal bench, still in shock, trying to process what had just happened. Theft of city property, unauthorized access. They were charging me with crimes for exposing their crimes. The genius of it made me sick. They'd let me make one phone call. I'd called Sarah, heard her voice crack when I told her where I was. She was calling a lawyer. She'd get me out. Just hold on. But holding on felt impossible. I spent 6 hours in that cell before a public defender arrived. His name was Robert Chen, and he looked about 12 years old, drowning in a suit jacket too big for his shoulders. Mr. Mercer, I've reviewed the charges. This is unusual. He flipped through papers. They're alleging you stole confidential city documents by copying them without authorization. They're also claiming you accessed databases outside your job scope. Did you do these things? Yes, but then we have a problem. I was documenting fraud, corruption. I'm a whistleblower. Robert looked at me with something like pity. That's a defense we can try to make, but Oregon's whistleblower protections are complicated. You'd need to prove you reported through proper channels first. Did you? I thought of Tom's warning, the threatening email, the way every official channel was controlled by the people I was trying to expose. No, I admitted, because everyone who would have received the report was complicit. That's going to be hard to prove. He closed his folder. Look, I'll try to get you released on your own recognizance. You have ties to the community, no criminal record. But Mr. Mercer, I have to be honest. If this goes to trial with the evidence they have, you're probably going to lose. They set bail at $50,000. Sarah had to take out a loan against her car to get me out. I came home to find her sitting at our kitchen table, surrounded by papers, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she stood and wrapped her arms around me so tight I could barely breathe. We're going to fight this, she whispered. We're going to win. But I wasn't sure we could. The next morning, my face was on the front page of the Riverside Gazette. City employee arrested for theft and breach of confidential records. The article painted me as a disgruntled worker who'd stolen sensitive information. No mention of corruption, no mention of what I'd found. Just me, the criminal. My phone started ringing, friends asking what happened, family confused and worried, former colleagues texting that they couldn't believe it. And then David called. I spoke to the FBI, he said. They want to meet with you. Hope flared. When? Tomorrow. But Daniel, they want the original files, everything you have, and they want you to cooperate fully with their investigation. Of course. Anything. There's more. If they open a formal investigation, you can't talk about it to anyone, including me. You'll be a federal witness. Everything changes. I understand. Do you? He sighed. The local charges against you won't just go away. You'll still have to fight those, but you'll be fighting them while also cooperating with a federal investigation that you can't tell anyone about. Your lawyer won't be able to use it as a defense. You'll look guilty right up until the moment the FBI makes arrests. If they make arrests. What choice do I have? Silence then. None, I guess. None of us do. The FBI meeting happened in a nondescript office building in Portland. 2 agents, Jennifer Walsh and Marcus Freeman. Mid-40s, professional, impossible to read. I gave them everything, the flash drive, my documentation, names, dates, amounts. I talked for 3 hours straight. When I finished, Agent Walsh leaned back in her chair. Mr. Mercer, what you've brought us is substantial. We're going to need time to verify it, but if even half of this is accurate, you've uncovered a significant corruption conspiracy. Does that mean you'll investigate? It means we're considering it. She exchanged a look with Freeman. But you need to understand something. Opening a federal investigation takes time, months, maybe over a year. During that time, you can't discuss this with anyone. Can you do that? I thought about the trial ahead, the public shame, Sarah's career, our life in ruins. Yes, I said. Then we'll be in touch. I walked out, not knowing if I'd just saved myself or sealed my fate. Riverside County Courthouse was a neoclassical building that had always seemed dignified to me. Now it felt like a trap. Sarah sat behind me in the gallery, her hand occasionally touching my shoulder. David was there too, notebook in hand, freelancing the story for whoever would publish it. The prosecution's case was simple and devastating. I had stolen city property, the files, accessed confidential information without authorization, and violated the terms of my employment contract. They had server logs showing exactly when I downloaded the files. They had my digital fingerprints all over the evidence. My new lawyer, Sarah, had found someone better than the overworked public defender, though we were paying for it with money we didn't have, tried to argue whistleblower protection, but the judge kept sustaining objections. The defendant's motivation for the alleged theft is not relevant to whether the theft occurred, Judge Patricia Hendricks ruled. Your Honor, it's completely relevant, my attorney, Michael Reeves, argued. Mr. Mercer was attempting to expose criminal activity, alleged criminal activity, the prosecutor, District Attorney James Morrison, interrupted, for which no charges have been filed, no investigation has been opened, and no evidence has been presented beyond Mr. Mercer's own interpretation of documents he illegally obtained. It was a perfect circle of logic. I couldn't prove corruption without the evidence, but obtaining the evidence was itself a crime, and since no one with authority had validated my claims, I was just a thief with a convenient excuse. The prosecution called Tom Brennan to the stand. I watched my former supervisor swear to tell the truth, and something inside me broke. Tom had been kind to me once. Now he was here to bury me. Mr. Brennan, Morrison began, in your professional opinion, did Mr. Mercer have authorization to access the financial files he downloaded? No, he did not. Did he ever come to you with concerns about irregularities in city finances? He mentioned a few discrepancies early in his employment. I explained that accounting procedures are complex and that apparent irregularities often have innocent explanations. What did he do in response? Tom wouldn't meet my eyes. He seemed to accept that explanation. I thought the matter was resolved. So he never followed proper channels for reporting suspected fraud. No, he went behind the backs of his supervisors and stole confidential files. Stole. The word hung in the air. My attorney cross-examined, but Tom was slippery, giving nothing useful. He portrayed me as an inexperienced employee who'd misunderstood normal government procedures and then, instead of seeking clarification, had turned to espionage. Teresa from HR testified next. Then the IT director, who explained in technical detail how I'd violated data security protocols. Each witness built the case against me higher. The prosecution rested. My defense was thin. Michael called character witnesses, Sarah, friends, former professors who spoke about my integrity. But character doesn't matter when the facts are clear. I had taken the files. I had accessed databases outside my authority. I had, technically, done exactly what they accused me of. Michael wanted me to testify, to tell my side, but that meant revealing the FBI investigation, which I legally couldn't do, or lying under oath, which I wouldn't do. So I sat silent, watching my life be dismantled piece by piece. The prosecution's closing argument was masterful. This case isn't about politics, it's not about accusations of corruption. It's about whether Daniel Mercer broke the law. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence is clear. He did. He knowingly accessed files he wasn't authorized to access. He knowingly copied confidential city documents. He knowingly violated the trust placed in him by his employer. Whatever his motivations, whatever he believed he was accomplishing, the law is clear. What he did was theft. And theft, no matter how righteous the thief believes himself to be, is still a crime. Michael's closing focused on my character, my intentions, the larger questions of justice. But I could see it in the jurors' faces. They didn't want to think about larger questions. They wanted simple answers. And the simple answer was that I was guilty. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman wouldn't look at me. On the charge of theft of city property, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of unauthorized access to confidential records, we find the defendant guilty. Sarah's sob behind me was the worst sound I'd ever heard. Judge Hendricks set sentencing for 3 weeks later. I was going to prison. I was free on bail pending sentencing, but free was a relative term. I couldn't work. I couldn't sleep. I could barely eat. Sarah and I moved through our apartment like ghosts, both trying to be strong for the other, both failing. Michael Reeves was honest about my prospects. First offense, white-collar crime, you're looking at probably 12 to 18 months. Maybe more if the judge wants to make an example of you. 18 months, a year and a half of my life gone, a felony record that would follow me forever. Sarah would have to carry everything alone. I'm sorry, I told her one night, the two of us sitting in the dark living room, unable to face turning on the lights. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. Stop apologizing, she said, but her voice was hollow. You did the right thing. Did I? I'm going to prison, Sarah. The mayor is still free. Nothing has changed except our lives are destroyed. Something will happen. David's still investigating. The FBI. The FBI hasn't contacted me in 3 months. I don't think they're coming. She had no answer to that. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for December 14th. December 12th, David called. "Turn on the news," he said, his voice electric. "Channel 7. Now." I grabbed the remote, hands shaking. Sarah appeared from the bedroom, sensing something. The screen flickered to life. A press conference. FBI logos. Agent Jennifer Walsh standing at a podium, multiple officials behind her, announcing federal indictments in a multi-year corruption and embezzlement scheme in Riverside, Oregon. Mayor Richard Caldwell, along with 7 associates, has been charged with wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and theft of federal funds. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Oh my God." "The investigation," Agent Walsh continued, "uncovered a systematic scheme to defraud the city of Riverside of over $3.7 million through fraudulent contracts, shell companies, and kickback schemes. We are grateful to the whistleblower whose courage in coming forward made this investigation possible." The whistleblower. Me. My phone exploded. Calls, texts, messages. Michael Reeves. "Have you seen this?" David. "I'm writing the story now." My mother. "What's happening? Are you okay?" I couldn't answer any of them. I just stared at the screen as they showed footage of Mayor Caldwell being led from his home in handcuffs, the same smug face that had watched me get arrested, now shocked and pale. "Mr. Caldwell and his co-conspirators face up to 20 years in federal prison," Walsh said. 20 years. I was facing 18 months for exposing him. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Within hours, my case became national news. Man convicted for exposing corruption, while corrupt mayor faces federal charges. The headlines practically wrote themselves. Civil liberties organizations issued statements. Legal experts went on TV calling my conviction a miscarriage of justice. Michael filed an emergency motion for a new trial. The governor's office issued a statement calling for a review of whistleblower protections. The Riverside City Council, those members who hadn't been indicted, released a statement thanking me for my service to the community. Where were these people when I was on trial? December 14th, I stood before Judge Hendricks again. The courtroom was packed with reporters. She looked at me over her glasses and I couldn't read her expression. "Mr. Mercer, this court stands by the jury's verdict. You did violate the law. However, in light of recent revelations and considering the nature of your actions, I am suspending your sentence. You will serve no jail time. You will be placed on probation for 2 years. Furthermore, I am recommending to the governor that you receive a full pardon." The courtroom erupted. Sarah was crying, David was typing furiously. Michael was shaking my hand. I stood there, numb, as the judge continued talking about justice and integrity and the rule of law. I'd won. But it didn't feel like victory, because I'd lost 18 months of my life to fear. Sarah had lost her peace of mind, nearly her career. We'd lost our savings, our naivety, our belief that doing the right thing would protect us. We'd learned the truth. Doing the right thing costs everything, and sometimes if you're lucky, you survive it. It was spring. The water ran clear and fast with snowmelt from the mountains. Trees were budding. Everything was coming back to life, including, slowly, me. The governor had pardoned me in February. The FBI investigation led to 19 total indictments. Mayor Caldwell pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His son got 8. Tom Brennan got immunity for testifying. The city had to pay restitution to dozens of victims. Patricia Dominguez got her $23,000 back, plus damages. She reopened her business. The community center on the south side was finally being built, funded by recovered assets from the fraud scheme. Riverside was healing, and surprisingly so was I. I never got my job back at City Hall, didn't want it. David and I co-wrote a book about the experience, Breaking the Silence. One Man's Fight Against Corruption came out last month. It won't be a bestseller, but it's getting attention. People are reading it, learning from it. Sarah and I got married in April. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. David was my best man. Agent Walsh came, which was surreal, but also somehow perfect. We're planning to leave Riverside soon. There are too many memories here, too many scars. But before we go, I wanted to come back to this spot one last time. This is where I used to come when I first moved here, when Riverside seemed like paradise, when I believed in simple truths and happy endings. I'm not that person anymore. I've learned that truth is complicated, that justice is slow and imperfect, that doing the right thing doesn't guarantee a good outcome. Sometimes it guarantees a terrible one. But I've also learned something else. I've learned that silence is a choice. Every time we see something wrong and say nothing, we're choosing. We're choosing comfort over courage, safety over integrity. our own peace over someone else's justice. For years, I chose silence. I watched the irregularities add up, watched the lies compound, watched good people suffer, and I told myself it wasn't my responsibility, that someone else would handle it, that my job, my relationship, my comfortable life mattered more than abstract principles. And maybe in a purely practical sense I was right. Speaking up cost me almost everything, but staying silent was costing me something worse: myself. The man I was becoming in that silence. Someone who could watch Patricia Dominguez lose her business, Marcus Webb close his store, families lose their community center, all while I kept my head down and my mouth shut. That man would have been a stranger to me, a ghost wearing my face. I don't regret speaking up. I regret that it was necessary. I regret the cost. I regret that the system punished the whistleblower before it punished the criminals. But I don't regret finding my voice. Here's what I want you to understand, what I need you to hear. You might face this choice someday. Maybe not corruption on this scale, but something. Something wrong that everyone sees and no one addresses. Something that makes you uncomfortable, that disrupts your peace, that demands a response. And you'll be tempted to stay quiet. You'll have good reasons. Your job, your family, your safety, your sanity, all valid, all real. I can't tell you what to do. I can only tell you what I learned. The price of speaking up is high, but the cost of silence is who you become while paying it. Whatever you choose, choose deliberately. Choose knowing the consequences. Choose as someone who looked at themselves in the mirror and made a decision they can live with. Because at the end of everything, when the trials are over and the verdicts are read and the dust settles, you still have to wake up as yourself. Make sure you can. I touched the water, cold and clean, then stood and walked back to where Sarah was waiting by the car. We had a long drive ahead, a new city, a new start. But this time, I was taking my voice with me, and I would never let anyone silence it again. This story is about finding courage when everything is against you. Have you ever had to speak up when it cost you something? Share your story in the comments. Your words might inspire someone else to find their voice. And if this story touched you, share it, because someone out there needs to hear it.